to us, but to the folks in Merida also. Just quickly to introduce the team, I think you guys know this fellow over here, Pastor Joe, and then Elizabeth Hart. Elizabeth is a member of Utica, but she's on mission at Bethany Baptist Church as the music director there. And so she goes with us on many of these trips. Addie Edgeman, Madison Durham, and then Daniel Perry here, and Link Franks, and Emily Steele, and Parker Soulsby, and Cindy Keys. And I'm Danny Rhodes. Okay, first let me just show you where we went. Oh, here we go, okay. The blue arrow points to Puebla, and that's where we have gone in the past. That's the home or the location of the home church of La Roca, and we would go often from there north of Puebla up into the mountains. We've been there 4 times and in Puebla 2 times. This time we went to Merida, which is at the red arrow there, down at the Yucatan Peninsula. And the reason we went there is that Pastor Nathan has family members there, one of whom is with us tonight, Rose here. And just so you understand, I don't know, I wasn't at worship service this morning, so I'm not sure what all was said. We were over our daily bread, but Rose is Nathan's niece, and she and her family live in Merida, and some extended family members as well. And Nathan would go and visit the family periodically, and during one of those visits, his nephew, Rosie's older brother, said he wanted to make a profession of faith and become a follower of Jesus. And he was involved in a business, a concrete business, that had a lot of fraud and just unethical business practices. And Nathan said, well, brother, you need to clean up that business, and because Jesus expects you to set the example and be fair to people. And he said, well, if I do that, it'll go bankrupt. And Nathan said, well, I'm sorry, you've got a choice to make. Fast forward a few weeks or a couple of months, and Andy, the nephew, called back and said, okay, Uncle Nathan said, we cleaned up the business and it went bankrupt, and now I'm out of a job. And so, but the Lord provided, and he was asked to come join another concrete company, and he's a salesman, and his sales commission doubled. So, God is faithful to us when we're faithful to him. But at any rate, Andy said, we don't have a church down here. We need you to come down and help us start a church. And that led the thought process. And so Nathan has turned over leadership of the home church to his elders there, and the great development of men in the church to lead. And so it was a no-brainer for him, and he packed up his family and moved to Merida. And they got there about 5 weeks or so, 4 or 5 weeks before we arrived. So that's why we went there, to help him, in Nathan's word, create some noise about the new church. And here's a picture of the team departing. I wasn't here because I was in Colorado, and I flew down to Houston to meet them there. And had I seen this picture before I left Denver, I would never have gone. I would have come straight back to Seneca. But we all did join up and arrive in Mexico Saturday night, and the lady second from the right is Arhelia, Nathan's wife, and Nathan's taking the picture for us there. Okay, now I'll be followed by Pastor Joe to talk about the worship service.
All right. When we got down to the last picture that Danny showed there, see if I can go back without messing this up here. This was in the airport. We had literally just got there, just got into Merida, and had just gone through airport security. This was my first time to Mexico, so I didn't know if I was going to end up in a jail somewhere for 30 years just for being white, or all these movies you see, right? I'm like, And it was so much easier to go through security there than it is to go through security here. Like there, I was like, oh, hey, we're cool. All right. High five the lady, whatever. I didn't quite do that. But it was much easier. And I didn't get arrested, and I didn't make any jokes, and it worked out pretty good. Yeah, but we got in here. We're in Mexico, right? I'm like, wow, they don't speak English here. I told the youth this morning in Sunday school, I said, you think there's a lot of Mexicans in Walhalla? There are a ton of them down there in Mexico. They are all over the place. There was a lot of them. And so we get in here, we're in the airport, and the first thing, we get to this point right here, and I look up, I'm like, we're in Mexico. This is a different place. This isn't Canada, this is Mexico. And I look up, and the first restaurant that I see, Johnny Rocket in the airport. I was like, well, all right, so not everything's different here. But we got there safe, like Danny said. And then, so Saturday, it's a get up early, you travel all day. If you just fly anywhere for one trip, go through Atlanta just for one thing, that's like half a day excursion right there. So to get here to Houston, like it's all day. We get there in the evening, we get settled. We show up to the church. This is the actual church that they're meeting. It's a house that we worked on that they'll talk about tonight. And then we set up for worship that morning and get the folding chairs out and everything. This is kind of a little covered area on the back side of the church. Nathan, and they actually paid and they put like a big covering over it. Lady didn't want them to mess up the house. He said, don't be anchoring stuff to us. So they welded and put this whole thing together. I said, man, that must have really blessed this lady that you guys, to leave this behind. He's like, oh, no. Then he told me a story. She's like, don't mess up my house. He's like, this is going with us. And I was like, good. It'd be like us putting that out there and saying, nah, we're going to move down the street. We're going to take that with us. Major thing. But we set up everything. And starting the service in the morning, we're getting ready. And one of the things I wasn't prepared for, it surprised me. I'm thinking, all right, it's about go time here. We're about to do this. And then he said, okay, we're going to go out and canvass the neighborhood real quick and invite people to church. And I was like, no, we're at church. So we literally got up and we started walking around and knocking on doors on Sunday morning and saying, hey, come on to church. Church is starting. So that was different. We don't do that here. So this more pictures of that. And then we had the service, and I'll stop it somewhere. One of the cool things, you see the guy on the drums back there, you might recognize Daniel. They're like, hey, anybody play the drums in your group? And, Daniel's like, yeah, I play the drums. I said, good. I don't have to today. You're on drums. And Andy's like, I'm playing the guitar today, and hey, he killed it. He did an awesome job. It was incredible. It was like they all played together forever, and he did a wonderful job. And I'll just click through these till we get to a stop. And all right, here we go. Multiple things happened during that service. And the service was a little longer down there than maybe we're accustomed to here, right? So I'm thinking, we come to church here. If Ryan's not done preaching by about 11:45, people from the preschool start coming down, looking in windows like, hey, you come back here and keep these kids and see how long you preach, buddy. You get it gets a little feisty sometimes back there. It was an hour and 45 minutes before I even got up to preach. That wasn't Sunday school and then something. That was literally the service started, and I'm just like, I don't know. He'll say when to get up, okay, And then I was like, well, we sure have been singing a long time. That's good, that's okay. Wow, all right. But it literally was an hour and 45 minutes, and he's like, okay, brother, come on up. And I was like, okay, here we go. I think we spent 3 hours, and church was 3 hours long, the worship service that day. And it was so cool. I mean, it was super cool. And there were several parts to it that happened that morning, or multiple parts. It's laid back. It's very relaxed and more casual, and it was very sincere, and it was beautiful. It was great to be part of that. And there several of the things that we did kind of all played together in that. At the end, I'll talk about Elizabeth singing a solo. But Parker and Cindy, they did a skit. They did a skit with this dollar bill that we've done with youth and stuff before, where they took this dollar bill and she crumbled it all up and I don't know, spit on it, whatever, and just kicked it on the ground and kicked it around and asked them how much that dollar was worth. And how much was that dollar worth? It was still worth $1, right? And we're talking, and they talked about how our identity in Christ, we still have value. Even if we get a little dirty, we get a little scuffed up or whatever. And it was really cool because it went along with, I shared my testimony that morning, so it fit really well with that. And then what I shared, I just shared my testimony. I'm like, I'm going to Mexico. Danny, I think you asked a couple days before we left or something, said, hey, they want us to preach, but I know that's short notice, so, no pressure. I was like, what, preach in Mexico? Are you kidding? They don't know me. I'm going to go down and give my testimony and tell what Jesus did in my life, right? And so that's what I did, and I shared the gospel, certainly all throughout my testimony, because that's what my testimony is. And it was my first time ever preaching with a translator. And I kind of get excited, I'm like, all right, so you got to check this part. It was super cool. I'm like, they use like way more words than we do to say like something too, by the way, and say them a whole lot faster. And I'm like, so what I was going to say was blah, 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 and this and that, and God, blah, blah. Right? So for me, that was a challenge. It was like this little dance we were doing. I was like, yes, sir. Oh, sorry, talking too long. Sorry. I got the clock. All right, so it was really cool. I just shared my testimony with what God and it's like any of us. Man, we all have the same testimony. We were lost. We were spiritually dead, and God takes us and He breathes life into us. And when we become a Christian, we become this new creation in Christ. And sometimes we're a little scuffed up, we're a little dirty, like the dollar said there. But God breathes life into us. And so I just shared this story of what Jesus did with my old dirty old life. And so as I was sharing, we got to the end, and we gave time for the invitation. And I just said, listen, man, this takes a long time for us to go back and forth. Usually, this is your people, this is your church. I don't speak the language. Just go ahead. You just share. Just give the invitation for them. And we stepped back and just let God work and do His thing. And then one of the young men named Eric that was at the church for his second time. I think that was only their third service that they actually had that we were part of there. He was there the Sunday before, and he came back, and then he gave his life to Christ that day. And he came up and he shared with me afterwards, so that he's like, man, God saved you. Like that really spoke to me that what the stuff that you shared, that God saved you, that He would save me, and it really spoke to him. And so he trusted Jesus for salvation. So it was really good. And part of what happened during that service was Elizabeth sang a song, which she's going to come up and sing, but she sang about just give me Jesus. And she just sang it. And there was this woman that was sitting in front of me, and she was just getting choked up. And I didn't know if she was like, stop singing, or if she was like, no, sing some more. But I'm pretty sure the Spirit was moving and just working on her, and she was moved, and she was just weeping and stuff. And so when Elizabeth got done, Nathan said, hold up, re-rack it, do it again. And so he just had her sing it all over again from the beginning. And she's going to come up and she's going to sing that song for us right now.
In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. And when I am alone, to sing. Yes, when I want to sing. Oh, when I want to sing. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. And when I come to die, yes, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. But give me Jesus.
Here's Eric, the brother that came forward to express his love for Christ, and he got the dollar bill from the skit, but he actually received a whole lot more than the dollar bill.
Amen.
Okay, now Addie.
Okay. So, okay. I'm really scared. So we ended up painting the church, which we needed supplies for, of course. So we ended up going to a Home Depot, which was actually really cool. Like, it was way better than our Home Depot, if you think about it, because, like, I know that doesn't matter, but, like, it was a pretty legit Home Depot. So after we got there, our stuff from Home Depot, we ended up going back to the church and realizing we needed more supplies. So we ended up going to another local hardware store to get some supplies, because evidently we forgot some stuff. So my part of just working there was painting. It was me, Madison, Daniel, and Parker that were painting the inside of the church. So that's what we needed the supplies for. But every time before we painted the church, we had to take all the chairs out, and we had to take all the drum sets out, and just totally take everything out, because we were scared somebody was going to steal them. So we, had to take them in and out every day. That was kind of tiring, but it's whatever. So that's us taking it in and out, of course. We ended up painting all downstairs, and then 2 of the 3 rooms upstairs, because we didn't have enough paint to do the last room, but nobody really goes in that room anyway. But that used about 2 of the cans of paint we needed, and we ended up using like 5 brushes, and 2 of them we like messed up majorly. But yeah, that was fun. We dripped a lot of paint on the floor, just to let y'all know. I think like half of the paint ended up on the floor. Me and Cindy Keys had to scrub the paint off. I lost like 3 of my nails doing that. That was pretty sad. That's kind of like the tile. Like the floor on the inside was kind of like the tile on there, so that's what we had to scrape it off. It wasn't bad, but, losing nails. This is Elias. This is one of the people that was at the church. He was so sweet. He helped paint the inside and did all that stuff. That's Rosalita. That's the grandma. I don't know how you say grandma in Spanish, or I would tell y'all. Abuela. Yeah, that was abuela. Yeah, but she helped as much as she could because she was older. But, I think that's my last one. Okay, yeah. One more? Oh, yeah, that's Arhelia. That's Nathan's wife. She was really nice. that's when she was helping us scrub the paint off the bottom. But yeah, okay. Madison? Oh, I gotta share, okay. So, where am I at? Sorry, guys. What impacted me the most was probably the people and how they were willing to go bring more people into the church. Like how they were willing to just go make disciples. See, if we did that here, that's like Joe saying, okay, everybody get up and go walk around to the Mill Hill and go walk around down the neighborhoods and ask people to come. Like, I don't know if I was you guys, but I'd be scared to go walk around in the Mill Hill and ask people to come. But they were and the people there that were in the houses that we went to, they were listening. Like, they wouldn't slam the door in our face and they wouldn't yell at us. They would just be like, oh, okay, and take the flyer and be like, cool. But I thought that was really neat, and yeah, people down there really listen. I thought that impacted me the most. I feel like we need to do that too. But yeah, okay, I think I'm done.
Okay, so we painted the exterior of the church as well. There was bars on the window, and that's what people see first when they walk up to the church. It's just black bars on all the windows. And the bars were really rusted, so me, Link, and Cindy Keys painted bars on the windows. And we also painted the doors that were out there as well. And at first I was like, why are we painting the bars outside? But after we did it, it looked really good afterwards. And it was kind of hard to paint it because we had these big brushes for little bars, and it was oil paint, so it was really runny, but it made a big difference to Pastor Nathan and his wife and the people of the church. They were really thankful for it.
So I'm going to talk about some of the miscellaneous work that we kind of did. So the first thing here is plumbing. I believe Nathan's wife really took care of this and took care of the toilet seat because it was broken. And that's Pastor Nathan and his friend Andy. Brother Andy, they did the electrical work outside and put in light bulbs and did the lights and all that kind of stuff. And that's me kind of breaking up loose tile there and really cleaning that up so it looks nice, but it took a long time, so I eventually gave up. And Mr. Danny was trying to help me with that, but we gave up because it was too tiring. And that's Pastor Nathan's son, Randy. He was trying to help us do that too, but again, we gave up because it was too tiring. And Pastor Joe and Pastor Nathan were up on the, I guess, walls or balcony. They were hanging up tarps to block out the sun and really use that as projection. They used that for the women's night, I believe. And there they are again, hanging up the tarps and everything. I was kind of scared for them because I didn't want them to fall or anything, but they didn't. And that's Pastor Nathan and his son cleaning out the gravel and everything. What impacted me the most about the trip is the culture change, really. First of all, I want to thank everybody that prayed for me and donated me, that allowed me to go on this trip. But what really impacted me was just the people and the culture. You know, especially here in America, there's racial stereotypes, and I didn't know how I would be treated down there. But they really embraced me and accepted me as one of them. And yeah, that's why I really enjoyed it down there.
After the cleanup, we had oil paint all over our hands, and we had to use paint thinner to get it off, and so that burns people's skin. When we rolled it on the wall was textured, kind of like, I guess you could compare it to popcorn ceiling, and so lots of speckles came off onto us. After we finished it, at the beginning of the week, Pastor Nathan said, if you get all of the church painted, then we can go down to the beach if we get finished early enough. So we finished up and we went and ate lunch around 3 and went down to the beach. 4 of us got to ride with Andy, so all of us didn't have to ride in the bus. And we really bonded with Andy and listened to his testimony going down to the beach and stuff like that. And on the way to the beach, he lost his phone because we made a stop to his house to pick up his daughter, Lila. And we were all like, Andy, where's your phone? And searching for his phone. And he said, no worries. No phone means no worries in life. Down there at the beach, we had corn on a stick because they like that movie Nacho Libre. And we had marcasitas as well, which is like a waffle cone and Nutella and cheese. It was really fun to watch the sunset down with the family and Pastor Nathan. We got to bond really well and talk about our stories and create friendships. And what this trip meant to me was being able to bond with them down there and seeing their relationship with Christ, because they didn't have air conditioning really or that much like stuff for them. So just to watch their love for Jesus and their relationship. And Nathan told us one morning at our devotions that God puts us in situations so we can call out to him. And so when you go through hard times and stuff, God puts you there so you can have a relationship with him. Link.
This was our friend that we met. We were walking back from the boardwalk, and this was a local fisherman. This was a local fisherman from Merida who was highly intoxicated, and he chased us down the street with his dog. We finally stopped and we talked to him for a little bit, and which at one point he just kind of started talking with his hands. And we asked, after we got done talking with him, we asked him if we could pray for him, and he said yes. And so, and then after we kind of stopped praying for him, he started crying, and then he kind of just went and sat with his friends. These were the pamphlets that we handed out to the people that we chased in 95-degree weather. And on the front of it, it had the name of the church and their contact information with their Facebook, YouTube, and some stuff. On the next page, it quoted some Bible verses. And then on the last page, it had the map so that people could find the church. The thing that impacted me the most was our meetings on Thursday, the Thursday morning. But every morning we would meet after we got done eating breakfast. And on the Thursday morning, Nathan had shared with us Acts 17:24 through 27. The God who made the world and everything in it, he is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in shrines made by hands. Neither is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives everyone life and breath and all things from one man. He has made every nationality to live over the whole earth and has determined their appointed times and the boundaries of where they live. He did this so they might seek God, and perhaps they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. That really hit me, because he also said that like he was glad in his life that he was raped and that he was beaten by his parents. And I don't know, that just kind of hit me to kind of like think that I should be grateful for everything that happened to me so that I'd be able to find Lord. And I'm going to hand it off to Emily.
So when we got the tracts, they were not folded. So we spent like 2 hours folding the 3,000 tracts. But while we were doing that, it was kind of cool to get to know the people from La Roca a little bit better and build those relationships. And then what impacted me the most was, like, it was really cool to see how genuine their worship was there. we have so many more distractions here, and it's cool to see how when those are taken away, how they just focus more on the Lord, and it really challenged me to focus more on my walk with the Lord. Now Parker's going to talk about handing out the tracts.
So Nathan had this map of like all the area around La Roca that he challenged us to get as much done as we could, because he wanted to hand out tracts to every single house and every single street there so that everyone would have a way to get to know the Lord. And so we all broke up into little teams with like a native from Mexico and then some of us, so that we could go out and hand out the tracts. And so we went and distributed tracts, and we talked to like every single person that we saw. Like this is Randy talking to just some random person, like not with a house, but just everyone on the street, so that they could have a way to get to church and know the Lord. And so after like the first day we did this, we got not very much done, but because the map was really big, but a lot done for us because we walked for a while in the really hot weather. And so then we did it for a second day, and we did the same things, like we just hand out tracts to everyone in every house. And normally it was a native speaker who was talking to the people, because we didn't want to embarrass ourselves because we didn't know Spanish. And so that's us doing the same thing. And we left the pamphlets on the doors if no one would answer, like even if they were home and didn't answer, just so that if someone was walking by and needed the Lord, that they'd go pick one up, or when someone got home, that they'd be able to get to the church. And what impacted me the most was like the differences between Mexico and here. Like Emily and Madison said, they don't have very many things. Like there's trash on the streets and like stray dogs everywhere, but they're genuine. Like they're genuine. They're thankful for what they have. Like they thank God that they're given everything they have, while we ask God to give us what we don't have. And they also have God first. Like that's their main priority, where sometimes we're like, oh, we have to do this, and like we have work and school and all these different things that we put above God, but they're just all for God. Like that's all they want to do. And they give their all to God, while sometimes we just give our excess. And so that was what impacted me the most. And so now Cindy's going to talk about the women's ministry. We passed out 3,000 tracts, and then we had to go back and fold more. And so we passed out around 4,500 tracts total. Yeah.
Okay, so where's the clicker thing? Here we go. So Thursday, we were challenged to help put on the first women's ministry meeting for La Roca-Merida, which was such an amazing opportunity, not just for me to do everything, but for these kids to host the first women's ministry meeting, which was so special. So we were able to put together some songs. We were able to put together an icebreaker so these women would really get to know each other. We were also able to do a skit. And it wasn't just me. These girls really, really stepped up. When I sent a text message to the group just asking, hey, would you be willing to sing for the ladies in Mexico? Or would you be willing to do a skit? They were all in, which was such an answer to prayer. And it wasn't halfway done, but they did it really well. There was a skit that Addie did talking about burdens and how so often we feel the need just to carry all of this stuff around. And whether it's a burden because we're comparing ourselves to someone else, or whether it's a burden because somebody says something and we take it personally, we just tend to carry that around with us, when in reality, Jesus is already carrying them. And the person who ended up performing this or doing this was Addie, who is one of the tiniest people on the planet. And so I cannot tell you how many of the women came up to me afterwards and just said that they would always remember little Addie with all of our book bags piled on her. I think it cut off circulation in her arms a little bit, but she really took one for the team. The men were having a Bible study, and they were entertaining the children while the ladies were having our meeting. And afterward, we had a dinner, and the men actually served the dinner. And I think that was all of the ladies' favorite part of the whole entire evening, was having our guys come out. They did not have to get out of their seats, if they wanted a drink or they wanted anything. Our guys were just so generous and brought it for them. What impacted me the most on this trip was the first time I went to Mexico, I was just knocked over by their boldness and telling everyone the gospel. They're just so passionate, and they realize that it's life or death, and they want everybody to know. I wish all of you could have seen Link chasing the guys going down the street, telling them, "Te invito a la Roca," as that's the only Spanish that we all knew. We had the little Google translator out there trying to help us. And my prayer for this trip was that my students, that our students would see that and would want to go deeper in their walks with Christ, that they wouldn't be satisfied with just surface, routine Christianity, but they would long for that passion. And I have to tell you, they saw it. They got it. And so you should all just be so proud of how our students stepped up. And they worked hard, and they didn't complain. I know none of you believe that, but they did it, and they really added some depth to their walks with Christ. And now Elizabeth is going to finish telling you.
So for the ladies' dinner ministry, Cindy Keese was the speaker, and oh wait, I forgot to tell you about the KP duty. So the guys also did the dishes. I was impressed. Good job. And here they are serving, and this is the group of ladies that we were able to have there. Cindy Keese came forward and shared her hard testimony of Matthew's awesome walk that she had with him, being married to him, and how he was an amazing man. And, we're always affected when people are authentic with us. And so Cindy just shared with them from her heart through the translator. It was Anita. She translated for us. That's Rose's mom. We fell in love with Anita down there. And so it was just really exciting to see these ladies be affected and realize that life is hard, but God is good. And, I don't know if y'all realize, but Joe stepped up on Sunday and Cindy stepped up on Wednesday. Y'all have amazing leadership in this church for the youth here, and I think that you know it, but if you could just give them a round of applause right now for Joe and Cindy, because they led this group. They kept us all together and kept us, straight. Danny and I were just holding on, and we were there for the ride. But it was awesome just to see how these ladies were impacted by the words from Cindy's heart and the words through Anita's mouth in Spanish to them. And you could see that Christ was really working with them. And I was able to, I actually lost my voice on Wednesday. And Nathan, as we're going down the road that day, he looks at me, he goes, "Sister, aren't you going to sing tonight?" And I said, "Don't think so." He said, "Well, just know God can use whatever you do. Don't worry if you can't sing," in other words. So the good news is I had a translator, so I didn't even have to use the microphone. I just handed Anita the microphone, and I whispered in her ear what I thought would be a good wrap-up. But I just encouraged the ladies, like I want to encourage you, that like Addie was carrying all those bags. That's not the life we're to have. That is not what God calls us to. He doesn't say, pick up all your bags and carry them around. No. Jesus tells us, "Come to me, you are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." He says, bring that to the foot of the cross and leave it. And I was able to, share that with these precious sisters there in Merida and share it with the girls. And y'all would have been so proud of them. They sang, they did the skits, and like Cindy said, they did not complain. I did not hear anybody complain that week. It was awesome. But I just want to share with you the verse that I shared with those ladies, and it's just Zephaniah 3:17. "The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He quiets you with his love, and he rejoices over you with singing, because that's our God. He is there with us. Being able to go to Mexico is always an exciting adventure for me. I'm so very thankful that y'all said, hey, Cindy needs a roommate. You want to go? I said, well, if Cindy can put up with me at home, maybe she can put up with me in Mexico. But, it's a blessing. I encourage each of you to search your heart. See if God's telling you next time when Cindy needs a roommate, if you should go to Mexico. No, I would not trade it for the world, but you can do it. If I can go and all my, American self can go down there and be amazed and excited, you can do it too. I just want to tell you that. But the thing that impacted me the most about the trip this time is we're handing out tracts door to door. And Madison and I were with Randy, Nathan's son, and we passed this car, and the lady says, hola, and so I stop, and I hand her the tract through the window, and I squat down next to her at the car, and she says, hablo inglés? I said, yes, I speak English. May I help you, And she said, talk to him. And she points to this 15-year-old kid in the passenger seat. And so I'll save you the long story. He gets out, and she says, because he doesn't believe in God. And I thought, wow, where do I start with this, And I said, how do you explain the trees and the grass and the sun and the beautiful world that we have? He said, oh, it's just here, And I was like, all right. I said, but how do you explain the love that you have for your friends and the love that you have for the people around you? I just love them. All right. And so I turned and I look at Randy, and I was like, Randy, you want to talk to him in Spanish? And so he shares with him, and I follow in the conversation a little bit, and I find out that his name is Omar. Pray for Omar. He says his dad died from cancer, and he decided there must not be a God because he took his dad. And I was able to hug that young man and tell him, Omar, why do you think I'm here? And he looked at me and he said, to spread your religion. And I said, no, you're wrong. You're really wrong. I said, I'm here to tell you that your Heavenly Father loves you. I came all the way from America to tell you that your Heavenly Father loves you. He sent me to tell you that. And he cried. He did not ask Jesus in his heart right then, y'all. Y'all need to pray for Omar. I pray that he will go to the church. I pray that he will speak to Randy. They're the same age. I hope. It's my prayer. But that's what touched me the most, is that 15-year-old kid telling me there's no God when I know that there is. And I know that's what I was doing standing in front of him. Thank y'all so much.
On Thursday evening, we'd been working, and we passed out. I didn't believe we passed out that many tracts, because we know that we went through 3,000, the first box, and we know we went through another half of a box that we got. And I was thinking, how many houses did I go to? And I was like, man, it was boggling to me that we were able to cover that many houses and invite that many people. But Thursday night came around, and the plan for Thursday night was that the men were going to do something and the women were going to do something, and we're just going to hang out and fellowship. But Nathan said, hey, can we just go out back and just praise the Lord and thank the Lord for the day? Now, when Nathan says that to you, or I don't know if it's everybody in Mexico or how they roll, just Nathan. When Nathan says that, that means everything else is done for the night. That's what's happening. So we go out into the back, and there's a picture. I know we got a couple pictures here. We go out into the back. It's light out still, all right? And we go and we just get in this circle. And one of the things that kind of moved me was, for us, we're looking for our chair. We're looking for our padded pew. We're looking for making sure that the new chairs we're going to get have enough padding and back support on them, right? They went out, that concrete floor right there, it was dusty and dirty, especially because Daniel wouldn't stop chopping up concrete that we kept cleaning up. Oh, we're good now. But they go out and they just get in their faces. Like they just got on their hands, their knees, and on their faces and just got in the dirty concrete. And I was like, oh, we're getting serious, right? We don't care. And to me, that just impressed me with them, that I was just like, man, there's something about Nathan that rubs off on all the rest of them there, that really, they just had this incredible humility before God and this reverence for God that it's just different than us. And we're not up here trashing us. It's just different how they do stuff, and it's inspiring how they do stuff. And so as we got around in this big circle, we just took turns going around the circle and praying. And it was dark when we got done. I think it was an hour and 45 minutes or something. We were still in the circle praying right at this point right here. And then next thing you know, Nathan gets his guitar out, and we just had the most beautiful worship service there. There wasn't it was just sincere, and it was beautiful. People were praying in Spanish. People were praying in English. We got singing. We were singing in Spanish, or they were singing in Spanish. I was just humming along, and it was just so beautiful. This picture of here's brothers and sisters in Christ, united in Jesus. And I say this, regularly, but who we are together in Jesus is bigger than any differences between us, right? Same way for us in this room, right? There's all kinds of stuff that we could say that makes us different from each other, but who we are united in Jesus makes us brothers and sisters, and that's so much bigger and more powerful than any of those differences. And it was just beautiful to be circled up and praying. And when they were singing, honestly, he was saying some of the Spanish words leading us into them. I'm like, listen, I ain't got it, buddy. It's not happening for me. But it didn't hinder my worship, because I just oohed. I watermeloned it, and hummed along with it, because I could do the music part of it, and it was sincere to God. It was beautiful. It was awesome. And so for me, one of the biggest things that really inspired me and challenged me was just their authenticity and their just reverence and their humility before God. It just really inspired. It touched me, and this was probably one of the most beautiful times of worship that I've been part of a group of people. And it's so hard to come back here because I've done these a lot of times, youth trips, camps, and whatever. It's just so hard to come back. You see the crazy pictures we post because you don't stop and take pictures of this stuff a lot, right? You don't stop when we're praying with Eric and he was receiving Christ. We don't stop and say, hold up, let's get a picture of that right quick. You take pictures of the fun stuff because you can or whatever. But it's hard to come back and really fully express in words the experience. And I do encourage you too, like Elizabeth said, that if you get the chance to go, some of you are going to go to Canada for the first time, and that's a great trip. Some, take advantage of go to Mexico sometime and just. And I told Nathan during the trip, and I said, listen, man, I want you to speak life into our students. I want you to take as much time as you want, because Nathan, he just loves Jesus, and it just oozes out of him. And I said, you take all the time that you want to share anything that you want with our group. That's, to me, I said, that's part of why I brought my students here. And what Danny organized, and Danny did an incredible job organizing this trip. If I was in charge of getting plane tickets, we might have gone to the wrong country. So I use the right people for the right jobs. But it was beautiful. And there really was a powerful connection that happened between the people in Mexico, Nathan's family, Rose's family, and us up here. That we're like crazy, like back and forth with a bunch of them, and just like we really bonded with them, and it really was beautiful. And I wish there was a way I could really express to you how beautiful this was. Just this authentic, sincere time of worship before the Lord. And I had on my list impact on extended family members. You'll see some more impact in just a few minutes here. But there was Rose's dad was in there, and he was in the back. And part of what I shared was about my uncle that I shared a little bit in here before that had passed from cancer, and how he had become a Christian at the end of his life, and how he didn't feel like it was fair that he could become a Christian after living his whole life. And I think Danny mentioned that he felt like that your dad, something really spoke to him. You know, I don't know all what's going on there, but it really was a beautiful time of us being together. And Danny's going to share some words here for our final stuff here.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we're going to have a great climax to the presentation this evening with Rosie's baptism, and you've heard us throw some names around. Well, it's truly a small world, and just before we left, Rose had arrived here and staying with Hesela and Miguel Resendez in Walhalla, and we got to meet all of her family, her mother, daddy, and brothers and sisters. There are 5 children in the family, and you've seen some pictures there, and I'll point out a couple more as well. Okay, well, this was that night after the impromptu 1.5-hour prayer session that Joe just mentioned. On Friday, we got to do a little sightseeing, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about this while Joe and Rose are getting prepared. But throughout the Yucatan Peninsula, there are thousands. I've read 3,000 at one point, sometimes 6,000 underground wells, and they're all connected by these underground rivers throughout the whole Yucatan Peninsula. And so we visited one of those here, and cenote means sacred well. And we actually had a chance to go down into one of the wells and enjoy the cool water, and it was a great change to the very hot, humid weather we had experienced the first 5 days to take a swim in some very cool, refreshing water. We also visited Chichen Itza. That is a huge complex, a city from the Mayan culture. We've all heard about the Mayan culture, and we were able to go there, and that means Chichen means mouth of the well of the Itza people, and that was a group of people in the Mayan culture. And we said, well, what does it mean, mouth of the well? And everything backed up from, we kind of backed into this, but here's another cenote, another sacred well here. And it also sometimes translated as well of sacrifices or the well of gods. And the culture believed that they needed to feed the gods with blood, and the more blood they could feed to the gods, the more satisfied the gods would be, and they would return the blessings back to the people. And the greatest sacrifice was a human being sacrificed. And so this, it's hard to see here, but you see these stone structures here, remains of all of the edifices and buildings surrounding, and just to the right there, you can see that dark spot. Well, there's a huge stone wall that goes down to that water there in that well. And they would take young virgins and get them all drugged up on this funny juice that they would make from a tree there and sacrifice them. They just throw them in the pit after these 2 or 3 days of rituals to sacrifice them. And also, here is the Temple of Warriors. These stone columns, there's 1,000 of those, and they represented all of the common soldiers. And although a lot of it's decayed over time, on the top of this structure, there were massive columns and structures that would be in honor of the leaders of the army, the warrior leaders. And whenever they would have battle and they would capture members from the other forces, they would take the senior leaders of those and they would sacrifice them as well and throw them in the well, in the pit, decapitate them and all those kinds of things. And the higher the stature of that military leader, the greater the blessing would be. They believed that the gods would pour back to them. And here is the ball court, and we were told that this form of sport that they played there was a forerunner of soccer. I might mention that this city started being developed around 6th century A.D., so and it went up to about the 16th, 17th century. And now I talked about the warrior leaders would be sacrificed. Well, flip that 180 degrees, and the captain of the winning team here would be sacrificed. Okay, so they would cut his head off, and because again, you know, this guy was a kind of a hero there, and the higher the level of status of the people in their culture, they believed the greater the blessing would be. Now, I just share all that with you just to tell you, you know, how messed up the society was, and you know, a very evil culture, and we could see, and we're told by Nathan and others of some of the rituals that go on in Mexico today. There's still a lot of witchcraft in Mexico today. It's holdovers from these type of worships that they had back in that time, even some, you know, a lot of the religious beliefs today of other religions kind of emanate from or you know, develop from that culture. Now, this says one of the 7 modern wonders of the world. That's the pyramid, not the group in front of it. But yeah, there's been a reclassification of the wonders of the world, and this whole complex, Chichen Itza, is one of the 7 modern wonders of the world. Now, it's hard to see here in the picture, but although we had some fun that day, we got to do a little sightseeing. The best part about it all was the culmination of the relationships that we built throughout the week. And you can't see all of them here, but on the end is Elias. And I mentioned, we talked about Rose. You know, her family lives there. And her other 4 siblings, we all met. That's Elias on the left side. If you come in 2 more there between, I believe that's Emily and me, is Randy, Nathan's son. You move over further across, and we've got, of course, in the blue shirt and the red and white shorts is Rosalita. That's Argelia's mom. And you can recall a week before we left, we were praying for Rosalita and praying for Argelia because Argelia's dad had just died. And so Rosalita had come down to stay with Nathan and with Argelia for about a month or so, you know, because she had lost her husband. And that's that lady that Joe talked about sitting in front of him when Elizabeth sang the song, "Just Give Me Jesus, when I'm alone, just give me Jesus." That was Rosalita. And that song really spoke to her. No matter how bad it was for her losing her husband, she still had Jesus. And it was just great to get to know her and build that relationship with her as well. And Eric, the blue shirt on the front row, kneeling down, he's the young man that was saved. And Andy's right smack in the middle, a gray shirt there, one of the siblings of the brother of Rose. And here is a picture of the youth. We've got some of the same ones mixed up with our youth, and that relationship built throughout the week and the bonding, and they still text and use WhatsApp and text messaging and everything else, staying in touch with their new brothers and sisters down there. And we were able to share with them throughout the week, you know, a Christian lifestyle. And we had others that aren't in these pictures that are not yet believers of Christ. And they're on the fringe, and they would come out and be with us. And we were able to show them what having fun and doing work and all the things we did in a Christian lifestyle would be to provide that kind of influence over them. And we were playing charades here in the van going down and coming back as well. And everybody was mixing it up there. And before I get to that, let me back up and say that you know, we do a lot of work when we go on mission trips wherever. We paint, we do these kinds of things, we build things, we do Awana camps, we do whatever we do when we go on mission trips, and those things are important. Of course, the main focus is to witness to people and present the gospel and hopefully lead them to Christ. But another great thing that we do, in my opinion, is that we encourage the people who are there. And they get really excited about folks, and you could just see it on their faces, the fact that people would come all the way from South Carolina and, spend the money that we spend for plane tickets and all those things to come down to walk with them in their shoes in their ministry. And it's hard for them, day in, day out, doing the things that they do. And when we go down, it's like a supercharge of the battery for them. And that carries them on for a while. And just the encouragement that we give them and letting them know that we believe in what they're doing is a great benefit that we provide to them. And we know that La Roca means the rock, and we know who the rock is, and that's Jesus Christ. And their slogan, Fieles a Cristo para alcanzar a otros, means faithful to Christ to reach others. And you heard Joe talk about that. And everything they do, day in, day out, is to present the gospel to other people. I mean, they get up in the morning. I've seen Nathan get up before he gets out of the bed. He's on all fours, leaning down, praying before he starts the day. It's just amazing to see how they're committed to Christ, and they live out this motto all the time.